Hello learners, welcome to this tutorial on art of writing a research article. So the outline of my presentation is a research writing overview. What are all the different sections in a research article? What is the anatomy or structure of a research article? Do's and don'ts in different section of a research article. And I will talk little bit about a Mendeley reference manager, plagiarism and professional ethics. Research writing. What is the key theme behind writing a research article? Why do we need to write a research article? There are several reasons to it. So the first reason is to share the knowledge with others. So whatever we have gained knowledge through experimentation or through some analytical process, that knowledge can be shared with others. And we can also share our key findings with the public community. So whatever the new thing which we have found out, again through experimentation or through analytical studies, can be shared with the public community. So due to which the people who are reading the research need not start from the scratch. So they have some fundamentals by reading your paper. From that they can build on their own aspects. It also helps to motivate others to carry out a research activity. So by doing some good research and writing it as an article, the others will feel motivated by reading our article and they will also start working on some research activities. To get a social recognition, we can write an article by developing a product which is benefit for a society and stating the information regarding the product in a research article will help in getting a societal recognition. And the final aspect is to get promotion and other professional benefits, we should write research articles. What are the important factors to be considered while writing a research article? So we should know what are all the things we should consider while writing a research article. So there are 4 factors. First one is coherence. So coherence in the sense, each section, so our research articles will have sections. So I will talk about these sections little bit later. So each section should contain all the necessary information. It should contain a necessary as well as a relevant information. Unnecessary repetition of words or sentences or information should be avoided. Again and again repeating the same type of sentence, same type of information should be avoided in writing a manuscript. Second factor is organization of a research article. So for organizing a research article, we have to follow a journal specific structure. So usually the journals, they have their own format and that format needs to be utilized while writing our research article. Or we can, in short form, we can say it as IMRD. IMRD stands for Introduction, Methods, Results and Discussion. It's a short form of having different sections in an article. Research article should be narrative. So it should be something like a storytelling. The reader should not get bored by reading your article. So it should have some way of attracting the reader to progress on reading your article. So it should be something like a storytelling or like watching a movie. You should not feel bored. The reader should not feel bored on reading your paper. And provide the right content in the right place. So exact information, what information you have to give, and you have to put it on the right section where you are going to specify that information. The third factor is relevance. Relevance, only relevant data or information should be included. So we should not write stories or we should not elaborate too much on a particular concept. So we should give only relevant data or information in each section. Article should be focused on a theme. So we should take a theme and our article should be written on that theme We should not get diverted from that thing, and limit the amount of data like graphs, tables, figures. So we should not put more number of graphs, tables, figures. So pick the important information to be given in an article, like important graphs, tables and figures that can be added or included in each section. So refer journal manuscript guidelines, like for the length of the paper, how many pages it should be there, what should be the style of paper, what should be the formatting of your paper. For that we have to look at the journal guidelines. And the final one is a clarity. So the article should be a reader friendly, it should be easy to understand. So by putting some difficult words, the reader might lose the interest in reading the paper. So it should be something like reader friendly. So even though the person who is not working on your field should be able to understand your concept. So it should be reader friendly and it should be easy to understand. Proper grammatical representation, phrasing and usage of words will help in providing information with greater clarity. So we should try to write the article with a grammatical representation, proper framing of sentence or proper usage of words. It plays a very vital role. So then only the reader will be easy to understand the concept what we are trying to tell in our research article. So these are the 4 important factors. The important factors are coherence, organization, relevance and clarity. So these 4 factors should be considered while writing a research article. So what are all the different sections in a research article? On the left you find these are the different sections usually seen in a research article. We have an abstract, introduction, literature survey, methodology, results and discussion, conclusion, acknowledgements and finally bibliography or references. So these are the major sections to be included in a research article. So we will look at each section one by one in detail. Before that, as we know these different sections are there in a research article, while writing a research article we should start with what? Which should come first? So that is what given in this composition order. So it is better to start with the methodologies first. So first you start writing the methodology section. So the methodology talks about what type of work you have carried out. Whether it is a experimental analysis or analytical analysis, what are all the components involved, how it is related with each other, how the process is done and what are all the parameters involved. So everything will be specified in the methodology section. Even statistical tools, what type of statistical tools we use and what type of analysis we use, everything will be specified in the methodology section. So this is the first thing a writer should concentrate. So first he should start writing this methodology section. If the methodology section has multiple methods, in that case we should put the methods in a proper order. And next comes your results and discussion section. Now the results and discussion should support your methodology section. So we should talk about the results which we obtain from the method specified above, and it should be in the same order. If in case of a multiple methods quoted in the methodology section, our results and discussion also should be in that same order. So next the author should write the results and discussion section. Then after completing methodology, results and discussion, we should write the conclusion part, what we try to conclude here. Then we need to talk about the literature survey. So before doing an experimentation, we might have studied many literatures. For example, I might have studied 100 literatures before doing an experiment. Right? So after doing an experiment, I got the results. So now I have put the methodology, results and discussion. So now I should select the literatures from my earlier number of literatures. I have to select the appropriate literatures which is related to the methodology and results and discussion section, and that I need to write in terms of a literature survey. So it is not mandatory that I should put all the literatures which I have studied in the paper. So I need to select the appropriate literatures which is relevant to my methodology and research and discussion. So those literatures alone can be put on to the literature survey section. Then finally we go to the introduction part, where we talk about the general introduction, how it is useful or what are all the significant factors by doing this research. Then after completing the introduction, we can go with the abstract. So abstract is the shorter form of your manuscript. So we try to tell the important aspects, what we try to deal with in this research article in the abstract form. Then if we want to thank some people while doing the experimentation or writing a research article, we give acknowledgements for them, and then finally the bibliography or references will be quoted. So this is the process in which the research article can be composed. So first we start with methodology, research and discussion, conclusion, literature survey, introduction, abstract, acknowledgement, and bibliography or references. Now let us see the sections, what it contains. The introduction section, here we talk about what is known, what is already known to a larger community. So I just give a brief introduction about the methodology or the process involved. So we try to talk about the basic fundamentals here. Our understanding on the theme of research will be described in the introduction section. And in the literature survey and summary section, how research has progressed around the globe on a particular theme we need to discuss. So we have taken some methodology or some experimentation for doing something. How worldwide many research groups, many researchers have done this job. So those things we need to detail it here. So how research has progressed around the globe on a particular theme. And this literature survey is also helpful to identify the research gap, what is missing, what the other researchers have not considered. So the research gap identification plays a vital role. And based upon the research gap, we can create or develop a hypothesis to test. We can create or develop a hypothesis for testing purpose. So after literature survey and summary, we have the methodologies and procedure. So in methodologies and procedure, we talk about the sample or data collection, how the sample is collected, how it is pre-processed before doing some methodology, pre-processing techniques. So like that we try to talk here. Then stating the methodology, what we do with the data, what is the methodology involved. So here in methodology we talk about three important factors. One is a block diagram representation. So in a block diagram representation, what are all the components required, how it is interconnected with each other. So such type of things are represented in a block diagram representation. Then a flowchart representation, which gives the process involved in doing the experimentation or the process involved with respect to time, we try to indicate using a flowchart. And then comes the table. So table, it will indicate the parameters involved in your experimentation process. So we have to state all the parameters or the conditions when we performed our experiment. So that also should be quoted in the methodology section. So here, after collecting the data, we have to state the methodology, what are all the operating parameters and what is the procedure involved in doing the experimentation or analytical analysis. Then we can also talk about some statistical methods. Once we get a data, we can apply some statistical methods. We can apply some statistical tools on the data to get some interpretation or to get some insight into the experimentation results. So statistical method involved also will be defined in this methodology and procedure section. Then comes your results and discussion. So in results and discussion, we need to comment on observations. Whatever we observe, we need to comment on it. Give some scientific aspect behind any observation. It should not be something like on x-axis increases, y-axis is increasing or decreasing, So we should state the reason why it is so, why it is increasing, why it is decreasing. We have to give some scientific aspect to that trend what we observe in our results. So once I get a result, the interpretation of the result is very, very important. We have to interpret it properly so that we give some scientific aspect why might be or what will be the reason behind such a trend visual in the results. So that we need to define. How does the research findings fill the gap? So we have already found the research gaps during the literature survey. How this research support that filling that research gap? So that is again another important thing which we need to discuss in the research and discussion. State research aspects need to be addressed in the near future. So upon filling some research gaps, something might be left out. How this can be tackled and how it can be used as a future scope of research. And the final section talks about a conclusion part. So the conclusion details about the findings and their implication in the area of study. It details about the findings and their implication in the area of study. States the limitation as well. So we should not try to hide the limitations of our method. It is always better to give the advantages of our method and also the limitation of our method. So all the advantages related to the method of a study of a current tree. So we should talk about both the limitation and the advantages in the conclusion section. So these are all the different sections of a research article. Start with introduction, literature survey and summary, methodologies and procedure, results and discussion and conclusion. Now let us talk about do's and don'ts in different sections of a research article. So first we start with the methodology section. So the methodology section, we should follow the methods. If I have multiple methods, then it should be in a chronological order. Procedure and measurements, methods, procedure and measurements. If I have multiple things, then it should be in a chronological order. Ordering of the methods should be in the same order as in the result section. So if I define method A, method B, method C, in the results also I should define the results from method A, results from method B and results from method C. So it should be in the same order. And the ordering of information, we can put the most important information first and then start talking about least significant information. So the very important information or most significant information should be defined first. About 3 to 4 paragraphs consisting of 4,000 words. And mostly try to use a passive voice and past tense in your methodology section. So the methodology section, it consists of this following data: sample or data collection, what is the experimental setup, that is block diagram representation, then operating parameters can be represented in a table format, and what are all the hardware and softwares utilized for doing the experimentation. What is the procedure in arrangement of experimental setup and measurement, that is represented using a flow chart. And finally we need to talk about the statistical tools. Once I get the data, what are all the statistical tools used to get some interpretation on the data. Results should not be discussed in this section. Okay, here we should only talk about methods, procedure and measurement, how it is done. The results should not be discussed here. So what are the different types of representation? Block diagram, table and flowchart. So all this block diagram, table and flowchart should have a proper caption. And this caption should not be a lengthy one. It should be a short form and it should give a abstract information about that block diagram, table or flowchart. The preferred images should be in terms of PNG or in EPS formats. All the parts in the experimental setup should be labeled. That is very important. Okay, so even though we give the experimental setup photo, each component, each part in the experimental setup should be labeled. And if possible, some important specification also can be given for each component on the experimental setup. Appropriate citation should be provided for referred items. So if we are not the owner of that item, it is always better to put proper citation for the content which we took from other research articles or some websites. So proper citation should be provided. Next we talk about the do's and don'ts in a results and discussion section. So here present the result according to the sequence of methods. So this I have already described. If I have three methods, method A, method B, method C, and the results also should be in the same order. So first I should discuss the result of method A, then result of method B, then result of method C. The results can be represented in terms of figures, tables, and also as a text. Report on data collection and sample group selection. If this information is not provided in the methodology section, it can also be given in the results and discussion section. But do not replicate it. If you have included this data in the methodology section, try to avoid that in your results and discussion part. Research questions need to be answered. Whatever the research gaps we identified earlier in the literature survey section, it should be answered, and the research questions also should be answered. And important thing is, report only relevant data. Don't write unnecessary information. Provide necessary scientific explanation. This is also very important. If I find some trend in my result, I should try to explain it in a scientific manner. Why the trend is like this? What might be the reason behind it? Or what has done to have such type of a trend? So give scientific explanation to all your findings. Validate your research finding with other similar results. Some other research group might also have worked on that similar aspect. So try to validate your result with the existing literatures. When referencing the figures, use the present tense. When discussing events of the experiment or study, use past tense. Active voice or passive voice is suitable, but be consistent. If you use an active voice, try to use the active voice throughout. If you use a passive voice, try to use throughout. Don't try to mix it here and there. Cite the figure or table every time you refer it in an article. So figures or table caption should be phrases. It should be short and it should be precise. It should not be very lengthy. Table formatting should follow the format of the journal or conference article. So usually the table format will be provided by the journals or the conference proceedings. So try to follow that formatting. Indicate the statistical test with all the relevant parameters. To represent numbers, use two significant digits unless more precision is required. So if I want to specify some numbers like 23.52, better to limit it with two decimal points, two digits after the decimal point. Need not put it as 23.52846. Until such a precision is required, no need to specify that. So try to limit your digits after decimal point to two significant values. Never use percentage for small samples. If the sample is very small, try to avoid percentages. For example, instead of 50%, I can write 1 out of 2. Instead of 25%, I can write 1 out of 4. So for small samples, we can use such type of terminology. Do not use spacing between the number and its units. 50 meter. So here the spacing should not be there. So instead of 50 space meter, we have to put 50 meter. Figure should have clear representation, legends and scale information. So the scale, x-axis, y-axis, the values should be bold and it should be easily readable. And legends, if I have multiple graphs embedded in a single graph, then the legends are very, very important. So the figure should be clear representation and it should have a clear scale information also. So the figures can be in PNG or EPS format. Unnecessary spacing between the paragraph and the figures or table should be avoided. Use specific expressions in the results and discussion section. For example, instead of putting it as a high temperature, high means it can be 100 might be high for me, but it might be low for another person. So high is a very, very subjective phenomenon. Instead of this high temperature or low temperature, I can define the value. What is the temperature? 35 degrees centigrade or 40 degrees centigrade. Same way, Instead of specifying it as a low rate, I can give something like it is 10% less, or 20% less, or 25% less, or 30% more. So like that we can define. Then instead of giving a highly significant, I can give something like R is less than some value 0.0015. So I can give some condition here. So the R is less than this one, R is less than B, something like that I can specify. Don't be too broad on reporting your findings. So here in a research article, we should not consider it as a book. In a book, it can be elaborate, whereas in a research article, it should be concise and precise. Don't combine unrelated paragraphs. So each paragraph should have some proper phenomena explained. So try to avoid combining unrelated paragraphs. Don't write a lengthy paragraph. A paragraph should give meaningful information. Each paragraph should specify a separate idea. Each paragraph should specify a separate idea. So these are the things which we need to take into consideration while writing the research and discussion section. Next, the do's and don'ts in the introduction and survey part. So we try to talk about the background information on the theme of study. What is the motivating factor for doing such a research activity? Try to put literatures supporting your research activity. Don't put literatures which is not relevant to the methodology or research and discussion section. So we should put appropriate literatures which is supporting our research activity. It gives clarity on important terms, definitions or abbreviations and approaches. By putting appropriate literatures, it gives clarity on important terms, definitions or abbreviations and approaches. Lengthy explanation and providing too many details can be avoided. Don't write it very much elaborately. Use only relevant literatures to support your study. Citation of all the literature should be carried out as per the journal format. So each journal will have its own format of putting the references. So we have to follow it strictly. Citation should be in the incremental order related to the positioning of the literatures in the text. It should not be in the alphabetical order. So it should be in the position order in the manuscript. So citation should be in the incremental order related to the positioning of the literatures in the text. Cite all the sources listed in the reference section. If I have 40 literatures, 40 references, then all the 40 references should be cited in the text. And after writing a literature survey, the summary of literature should be carried out. So it gives the reader a better understanding on what are all the different aspects the different research groups have tried out and what is the research gap that can also be easily identified by summarizing the literature. Identification of the hypothesis or research questions can be carried out. Include a clear purpose statement or hypothesis. Investigates, for example, keywords are investigates, describes, lays out, presents, analyzes, attempts to determine, purpose, objectives, assess, measures. So these are some of the keywords which defines clear purpose statement or hypothesis. Statement of purpose can be qualitative or it can be quantitative. So qualitative in the sense independent variables are subjective in nature, whereas quantitative in the sense independent variables are objective. We specify it with numbers. Statement of purpose comes in as a last paragraph in the introduction and literature survey section. So after summarizing all the literatures, we try to state what is the statement of doing this, what is the purpose of doing this research activity. So which comes as a last paragraph. Use keywords to focus on the exact problem addressed during the research activity. And the final point, important point is have a peer and or an editing service to look over your draft. After completing your research article or a section, you try to give the details to some persons who does not work with your field. Try to ask him to read and give comments on a particular section or an article. Then try to give the article to some editing service or the English writers. So they can look at your paper and they can give their comments, and based upon their comments and suggestions we can modify our manuscript. And what we need to do and do's and don'ts in the reference section, we can make use of a Mendeley reference manager for providing the references. So the Mendeley reference manager is a very helpful tool to specify your references. So when I try to change from one journal to another journal, it is easy for me to change the format of references from one journal to another journal using the Mendeley reference manager. So I will add a separate tutorial on a Mendeley reference manager, how to use it while writing a research article, that I will try to specify as a separate tool. So try to use this Mendeley reference manager where the format of references can be easily changed from one journal to the another journal. Otherwise it will take a lot of time. It will consume a very large time in converting the references from one journal format to another journal format. And we can also add this Mendeley in a Word so that it can be easily included in the Word documentation. Cite the references as per the journal format. All the references should be cited in the text. If we are concentrating on a survey paper, it should contain more than 60 papers, and this 60 papers should not be monotonous. It should be having a variation, or it should have a diversification of papers. References can be saved in a RIS or BibTeX formats so that it can be easily included in the manuscript. The general format, reference format considered is, we can state the authors, author 1, author 2, and before the final author we can put and author 3. Then give the title of the paper, journal of the paper, volume number, issue number, page number, and the year. So this is a general reference format, but you have to look at the journal formats. They specifically provide certain way of ordering the information. As a summary, so here in this tutorial I have discussed about what are all the important factors to be considered in writing a research article, what are all the different sections in a research article, and in which order we should start writing our research article, and what is the anatomy of a research article, do's and don'ts in different sections like methodology, results and discussion, introduction and literature survey, and the reference section I have talked about here. So I will try to add a separate tutorial, video tutorial on Mendeley reference manager, how to include the references in a research article using Mendeley reference manager. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more technical learning. Thank you.